Hey guys, it's DJ here at Top Deck Cards and Games, and today I want to do a video talking about the metagame from the ARG Open event from this past weekend, or Circuit event. I'm not actually sure what the series is called anymore. First I want to go through what decks all made top 16. There were a couple surprises. First off, 2 Sylvan decks topped, including one that won the event. 2 Spellbook decks made the top cut, and 2 Burn decks made top. Along with those, there was a Dragon deck, an Artifact deck, a Boojin deck, and 7 Girgia. Burn topping surprises me a lot. It's really bad in a meta that's filled with so many trap negators. Like, all of the Girgia decks made 3 wiretap and at least 2 7 tools. That's one of the staples of the format now. That's some of the cards I pulled to the side here are big cards of the weekend. First and foremost, the trap negators. Every Girgia list, like I said, was playing 3 wiretaps and at least 2 copies of 7 tools. At least one list, maybe more, played 3 copies. I don't remember off the top of my head if there were more, but... So, trap negation is huge. One of the reasons I think Sylvans were able to do so well is because of how good Rose Archer is in the meta right now. All the Girgia decks play about 17 traps, maybe more. Artifact decks play a similar amount, probably at least 14 up to 17 or 18 as well. So, being able to negate trap cards is very, very strong in the format right now. And that's one of the things that allowed Sylvans to do so well. Alongside that, the format's pretty slow right now. Girgia can be very aggressive, but the mono Girgia builds aren't the most explosive. They don't draw Girgia gear. Like, very specific hands, they can just go off and destroy you very quickly, but normally you'll have time to set up with Sylvans, and when you do finally get there, you'll have Rose Archers to back your play. Like, in their set, wiretaps and 7 tools do nothing to the list at top because it plays 0 trap cards. So that's very, very strong for the deck. The other surprise to me was the 2 Spellbook decks in the top cut. Spellbooks are a very, honestly, weak deck right now, in my opinion. They have a lot of the same advantages that I just said about the Sylvan deck. When you have a lot of time to set up with that deck, you can get to very unbeatable positions, especially when you're summoning World multiple times in a game, which, again, if you're not getting killed, you'll have time to do. And it's kind of a symptom of how inbred the format is with all the wiretaps and 7 tools, but Fate was already one of the best, like, traps or defensive cards in the game. And you can't negate a Fate with a 7 tools or a wiretap, so it allows the deck to really excel. Personally, I don't think spellbooks are the way to go in the format, but they also have a bonus of having a lot of extra deck space, which allows them to incorporate XYZ Universe, the other big breakout card I want to talk about. Universe lets you make exceeds with your opponent's fields when they're playing Girgia, so if they have a bunch of Girgia against in play, you can make an 8 or a 7 with it. Spellbooks have a lot of open space in their extra deck, so they can use this card effectively. The other, one of decks at top was Dragons, which is the other deck in the format that can play XYZ Universe better than any other deck. Its extra deck already incorporates all the targets you would want for this card. So, I think this card will be a huge defining factor in the rest of the format with how Girgia heavy the meta is. Like I said, 7 Girgia top 16, almost half of the top cut. It was by far the most represented deck in the tournament and in any tournament right now. So I think those results need to be taken with a grain of salt. Similarly, Dragons are incredibly underplayed right now, so it's not surprising that only 1 made top cut. People are flocking to Girgia because it's, like I said, the format's getting very inbred because people see the results, they see more Girgia topping, and they switch to Girgia. People get on this train, they keep switching to it, they keep inbreeding their Girgia decks to play against other Girgia decks to the point where, you know, you're playing 3 wiretap, 2 7 tools, multiple copies of both Blackhorn and Traptrix Trapple. And rather than people really expanding the format and trying to break the mold, which obviously isn't the case, people were playing things like Sylvans and Spellbooks, but for the most part, people keep sticking to this one deck, and it just keeps getting more and more inbred to deal with itself, which is really weakening it to the rest of the field. When you're playing against a deck like Dragons, for instance, that are playing, you know, maybe 5 trap cards in the case of this event, 2 of them were Royal Decree, playing 5 trap negators or even 3 Rose Archers is honestly a bit of a liability. Those cards are going to sit in your hand dead a lot of the time. They're functional -1s, and if you set your 7 tools or wiretap, you've lost the spell trap slot. So, decks like Dragons, I think, are very strong in the metagame, just underrepresented. The last 2 one-of decks that topped are 1 Artifact and 1 Boojin. Right at the present time, I don't think Artifacts are very well positioned. With Girgia playing 5 trap negators, Girgia was already a hard matchup, and they're playing 5 cards to negate our best cards. It's really, really a hard time to play Artifacts and do incredibly well. That could shift, I think, because the Girgia deck, or rather the Artifact deck has a very good matchup against dragons, and it's not the worst against the Rose Archer Sylvan deck. Rose Archer is kind of a pain, but unlike Wiretap, it doesn't prevent our Sanctum. Like, if we activate Sanctum and they Rose Archer it gets destroyed still, so you still get to destroy a card. So they can't totally blank us like Wiretap decks can, which is good, but Wiretap's also not going anywhere in the format, so I'm a little bit shaky on Artifacts. It's one of my favorite decks, and I would like to play it if I can. But there's a lot of hostility towards trap decks right now, and Artifacts can't play around it as well as Geargia can. The other one, Boojins, I think it just happened to top. I don't think Boojins are a good deck by any means. What the deck does is very predictable, very linear, and very easy to beat. Especially when Artifacts are in the format. I don't think Artifacts can actually lose to Boojins. The fact that Moral Tech doesn't target makes it nearly impossible to get beat by just, you know, a turn 1 tanky Yamato set a couple. Like, that's honestly not enough, since they have to burn or remove on your Sanctums, plus your traps, plus anything else. It's an okay deck. Personally, I wouldn't be interested in playing it at any high-level events. But to me, the biggest surprise of the event was the Spellbook decks that topped. As I said, I think it's in an interesting position right now where the format's very slow. It's pretty, not immune, but it's less affected than the other decks by Wiretap, Seven Tools, Rose Archer, since it has such a powerful spell that it can cycle every turn to use as a trap. And it benefits a lot from the lack of MST that's seeing play in the format, since your tower is guaranteed to stick and play if they don't have Typhoon. So that's a plus. The only decks that are playing MSTs right now are the Artifact decks, and it's falling out of favor, so. Other than that, the big surprise of the tournament was that no Madolches made the top cut. That's a deck that I've been saying is pretty bad, in all honesty, for a little bit now. I tried a couple different things with it, didn't like any of them. The deck, it's filled with normal summons, it's cloggy, it's slow, and a lot of times, even your very strong turn 1 plays don't really do anything to a field full of back rows. You need to have, you know, multiple wiretaps, or if you play trap stuns, like multiple trap stuns, to just keep forcing plays through. And then against other aggressive decks like Dragons, Sylvans, Infernities, I think they just do what you do better as far as exploding goes. It's playing, you know, a grindy rank 4 deck similar to Geargia, but it doesn't have as good of a defensive setup. It doesn't have a Geargia gear. It's a very ed deck in my eyes. With that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts topping again, because it is better against some of the other decks than it is against the heavily saturated Geargia meta, but for the time being, I don't think Madolche is very well positioned at all. So that's really it for the tournament itself. Like I said, Sylvans ended up winning, which was a huge surprise, but when it gets to play against Geargia in the finals, when it's playing 3 Rose Archer, and it's such a positive matchup for the deck, that's not much of a surprise, I guess, that it won that specific game. Just the appearance of it in the top cut of the tournament, 2 of them, was a very, very big deal. It's good to see the meta shaping up a little bit, since we're seeing decks like Spellbooks and Sylvans in the top cut of tournaments, but at the same time you're seeing Geargia decks get more and more inbred. So as you prepare for Nationals or whatever other events you may have coming up, that's really the biggest thing to keep in mind. Like, you need to be able to beat Geargia, which I think decks that can abuse XYZ Universe are the best decks at doing that. Like I said, the Sylvan deck does it well, and the Spellbook deck does it well. And notice those decks both topped this event when they hadn't been topping much before. Finally, Dragons do as well, like I said. Dragons are heavily underplayed. If you're a fairly good player, I think you should pick up Dragons and at least start practicing with them a little bit. I think it's a deck that you should be able to play on a high level, and it's very rewarding to be able to play the deck well. So if you have time to sit down and really practice with the deck, I would start grinding with Dragons if I were you. I haven't done a Dragon deck profile recently, so maybe I'll do one of those soon. If not, just go check out the list from the ARG event. Like I said, one made the top cut. It's a pretty good list. So that's it for now, guys. Whenever there's another event in North America, I'll try to do another review on the meta and talk about some of the big cards of the weekend like this. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys like this, or if there's something else you'd like to see me talk about from the tournament. I didn't actually go to the event, or I would have done a tournament report as well with this, but alas, I was not there. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know if I can throw out any more content to help you guys prepare for Nationals or any other events you may have coming up, and thanks again.